Congratulations. You did good. You did great. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate the support. It was an interesting endeavor, making an hour-long TV show, especially for this old gutter kid from Jersey. Didn't figure that would ever happen.
I know. That was cute. You instant messaged me that
Aw.
a gutter kid from Jersey. Come on. Yeah, you said thank you to all my Twitter friends for watching tonight's episode of Capital Crimes. As you saw, we did something unprecedented, prosecuting Muth, who was the perp, as you say, in absentia while he was hospitalized, starving himself to avoid trial. Now I can think of another maiden legal voyage we must take. What would that be, Glenn?
Yeah, I love when people tell me that you can't do this or you can't do that to President Trump because there is no precedent.
Yeah.
Guess what? There was no precedent for me to prosecute this defendant, Albrecht Muth, from his hospital bed because he had starved himself from 180 pounds down to 91 pounds to avoid going to trial.
Yeah.
I said, there's no precedent. Watch me make precedent. That's what we will be doing to Donald Trump beginning in January.
Well, it's you always say it. You say, and you actually tweeted it. Oh, pardon me. My phone is still on. You said, where in the Constitution does it say presidential crimes are unchallengeable? Or when you say, when people say, oh, pardons are not challengeable. Yeah, you said comparing Trump's pardon, for instance, of Flynn with Ford's pardon of Nixon shows not all pardons are created equal. Trump's pardon is akin to a game show host doling out a prize. Here's why justice demands a legal challenge of an illegal pardon. Explain that in the Flynn case. I would say it's because he lied to protect Trump, right? I mean, he lied not to protect himself. But
yeah, both Roger Stone, whose sentence was commuted, and Mike Flynn were basically co-conspirators with Donald Trump. And they were hiding information so as not to hurt Donald Trump. So Donald Trump delivering them a sentence commutation in Stone's case or a pardon in Flynn's case is corrupt. It's all part of an ongoing conspiracy. So when people say you can never challenge a presidential pardon in court because the Constitution simply says the president shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons. That is absurd. The presidential pardon purists who say that means it can't be touched. So you're telling me then that the president could set up a pardon kiosk at the front door of the White House and say, I am delivering pardons, $1 million a pop, make the check out to Donald J. Trump, please. That would be criminal. That would, of course, have to be challenged in court. Or if Donald Trump said, listen, I am hereby pardoning all white defendants, but all defendants of color, you can remain in prison. Thank you very much. That would be an unconstitutional violation of the equal protection of the law. So don't tell me you cannot challenge a presidential pardon in court. We can and we must.
And as I understand it, as usual, this is something kind of dumb that could backfire on him, right? Because it means that Flynn has no more Fifth Amendment, right? He has to testify, and if he lies, he goes to prison, right? So does that mean Congress? It means Letitia James? Tell us what else that means.
It means everybody with subpoena power. So once you are pardoned, that extinguishes your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because anything you say can't be used against you because you've been pardoned. Mm-hmm. So Letitia James can subpoena him to the grand jury. The Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance, can subpoena him to his grand jury. The Southern District of New York prosecutors can subpoena Mike Flynn to the federal grand jury sitting and listening to cases about Donald Trump and company. Congress can subpoena Mike Flynn. So Mike Flynn better check his calendar because he's going to have a whole lot of court and congressional appearances coming his way.
Yeah. And Glenn, I'm, as you know, so with you on this. Justice is coming, and we just can't go, oh, we just need to move on. Because even the Mueller report, I mean, all the stuff we're talking about, Flynn, how do we just say that's all okay? Colluding with a foreign power to subvert our elections, that's all okay. And the 10 counts of obstruction of justice to cover up the criminal conspiracy, that's all fine. I mean, do you feel like shoes will still drop from the Mueller investigation?
And I love that you brought up the Mueller report and the 10 felony counts of obstructing justice. When I was a federal prosecutor in D.C., Bob Mueller was my boss. He taught me how to be a federal homicide prosecutor. When he took over as chief of the homicide section, he handed me a case he had indicted involving the shooting of a police officer because the defendant wanted to steal the police officer's gun. And so I actually got to see inside Bob Mueller's investigative work in the grand jury because I had to pick up his ball and run with it. And the way he works cases in the grand jury, the depth and the breadth and the meticulousness of his investigation, that's exactly what he and his team did in the Trump-Russia investigation. So those 10 felony counts of obstructing justice that Bob Mueller meticulously detailed in Volume 2, that is a blueprint for a prosecution of Donald Trump beginning in January. A first-year law grad, a baby prosecutor, could walk into case with that evidence and could convict Donald Trump hands down. And that justice demands that. The crimes against the people of the United States demand that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard this last night from Sean Hannity. Do we have that? Yeah, here we go.
The president out the door needs to pardon his whole family and himself because they want this witch hunt to go on in perpetuity. They're so full of rage and insanity against the president. I mean, can the president, I assume that the power of the pardon is absolute and that he should be able to pardon anybody that he wants to.
So, of course, completely innocent, he and his family, but also in need of a pardon.
Right.
But wait, I'm curious again. So I know Letitia James, among others, said, "Oh, we're ready. The attorneys general are ready if Donald Trump pardons himself." Tell us about that unchallengeable pardon, Glenn.
Sure. Well, first of all, Hannity is softening the ground because we are about to see Pardonpalooza. It's coming, and Donald Trump will pardon his family members. He'll pardon his cabinet members. He'll probably pardon select members of Congress, maybe even DeSantis, maybe even some governors, right? Because DeSantis just doubled down on death in Florida. That's his goal. So we're going to see lots of pardons fly. They should all be challenged in court if there's evidence that they were corrupt pardons, and many of them will be. Like if he pardons Jared, well, he and Jared and Mike Pence and others were in a de facto criminal conspiracy to lie to us about the coronavirus. So that's a conspiracy right there. So we should be able to void any pardons that he delivers to co-conspirators. But when you talk about Letitia James, guess what? Presidential pardons have no impact because those are state matters. So you can pardon people all day long, and Letitia James and Cy Vance can still drop criminal charges on your head.
So I'm getting, my Nuremberg prosecutor dad's blood is tingling in me when I ask this question, but kids in cages, is that The Hague? Is there another court? Is there an international court that deals with? Oh, go ahead.
Yes. In theory, war crimes and crimes against humanity could be taken up by international courts. Let's clean up our own criminal problems here. We need to prosecute Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and company for kids in cages. And don't forget, one of Donald Trump's own appointees, Miles Taylor, the chief of staff at Department of Homeland Security, he left and he started telling the truth. And he said, Donald Trump told his DHS officials, I want you to violate our country's asylum laws. And if you do, I will pardon you. All of these cases are screaming to be brought, and Donald Trump needs to end up in court as a defendant.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of court, you said the recent Supreme Court 5-4 decision in the New York religion case makes the strongest argument for increasing the number of SCOTUS judges. Again, as not as a lawyer, Glenn, what does this have to do with religious liberty? This is a pandemic. And we're saying no large gatherings, unmasked, with people, screaming and singing and shouting. It's not about religious liberty, even to me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And first of all, I'm going to acknowledge that it's not easy to balance First Amendment rights, whether it's the right to free speech, the right to free press, the right to religious assembly and worship, the right to assemble and petition the government for a redress of our grievances. And boy, we got some grievances against our government these days. You have to balance all that against the government's responsibility to protect and promote public safety. And that's where those two things can collide. But here, and I can argue, all day long that the way the Supreme Court went about deciding this case was just wrong, both on the substantive front and on the procedural front, because it got mooted out because those restrictions were no longer in effect. So the Supreme Court should not have reached out and even decided it. But here's what this drives home for me, more importantly. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was on the court back in July before she passed, may she rest in peace, the Supreme Court decided a similar case one way, in favor of the government restrictions and against the challenge by religion. Now, Amy Coney Barrett, they have decided it another way. Here's the point that drives home to me. It can't be that a one justice swing one way or another can govern how 330 million Americans will have to behave, can govern what our Constitution means, because apparently it meant one thing when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the court, and it means an entirely different thing now when Amy Coney Barrett was on the court. That is why we need to increase the number of Supreme Court justices, because 9 is not a magical number.
Remember when when you used to scream about activist judges? Like, isn't that what this is what they're looking for in the election case? It's just activist judges to go, nope, we'll just give the electors to Trump. There's no, because something fraud. I mean, to me, when I first heard that, I just went, it doesn't matter to us why you're gathering, just no gathering during the height of a pandemic. It's not that we're judging why you're gathering. It's the same thing for restaurants, bars, whatever. But anyway, so talk to us about where we are with this ridiculous, I think it was Mark Elias, the head Democratic lawyer, that said we have some legal mop-up work to do, but this is over. So obviously every battleground state has certified. Is Wisconsin today, I think, will have certified for Joe Biden. So what are they doing? What are they doing legally? It's not. Someone said, Glenn, it's not a legal strategy anymore. It's a political strategy, I guess. I mean, what are they doing?
Oh, it's a money-making strategy. It's a money-making strategy. Donald Trump is grifting his base by pretending that he has a fight, by pretending he has an avenue to attack the election results. He doesn't, and he probably knows he doesn't, but everybody else in America knows he doesn't. He's using it to grift. He's using it to steal money from his base by pretending there is still a battle to be fought. He's no different than Steve Bannon, who literally was stealing from Donald Trump's base, pretending they were going to build a wall. They weren't. They were stealing, and Steve Bannon is about to be a convicted federal felon as a result of stealing from Donald Trump's base. Donald Trump is stealing from his base. He has no shot at overturning the election results.
Counselor, sidebar. Donald Trump has built exactly 25 miles of new wall. Okay. Right. But they thought that people privately were going to be able to build 3,000 miles of wall was okay. Right. And that he still is people are still sending money thinking that he's going to overturn this election, which, but I have gone from terrified because again, they're so lawless that you're like, oh my God, could they actually get this to the Supreme Court? And could the Supreme Court just appoint Trump, and would electors just go against the people? And I guess as the answer has become a more resounding no, you're able to laugh at how pathetic it is, right? I mean,
how pathetic it is until January comes. And then, Steph, we better have the political will not to turn the other cheek, not to let bygones be bygones, because, the crimes that have been perpetrated against not only the American people, but the immigrants who came here yearning to breathe free, only to be thrown in cages and have their children thrown in other cages, forever separated. Yeah. I mean, that you can't just say bygones. You can't just say, oh, well, that was unfortunate. Let's move on and heal. There's no healing for this country without accountability for what Trump and company just did to us.
Agreed to the 10th power. I know you were busy preparing for your TV stardom. I do recommend that you go back and watch the Maria Bartiromo Donald Trump interview, if only because she was fine and poker face during that there are Trump votes under, where was it, rocks and in rivers, and also in trucks that were backing up, and the Dominion voting machines and dead Hugo Chavez.
Yes.
But when he got to that the DOJ and the FBI were involved, she did a full Scooby. She did that. She did the right when he said that his DOJ was
there's nobody
and the FBI involved in stealing the election for Joe Biden, because right, why not?
Yeah, there's nobody he won't turn on, and now he's calling out Governor Kemp. He's saying, you're a loser, and I'm embarrassed that I supported you. And well, that shows your poor choices, Donald Trump. But he will turn on everybody. The only open question is, does that include Ivanka, or is that the one person that he will stick with? Because he will turn on his family members.
It's amazing. It is amazing. I know. I loved your tweet. You said Donald Trump is such a failure. He's even failing at being a loser of a presidential election. You can't even lose, right, you loser?
Yeah.
I love you.
He's a good loser. He's not a good loser, but he's good at losing.
Yeah, he's good at it. He's doing it again and again. Well, I love you, Glen Kirschner, in a myriad of appropriate and inappropriate ways. And